So, again, we're going to do the evens today, and then we'll talk about all of them tomorrow. So the first even would be number 2. This section we're writing the equations in y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. Okay, so in number 2, we're looking at y equals, now I take the m part out and I put the m value in, 2/3, then my x, then plus b. Well, b is a negative number, so we can just do minus the b value here, so -4. Same thing on number 4, but now they actually give it to me in what it actually is, not the letter that we use to like nickname it. So the slope, that's my m, and the y-intercept, that's my b, and then we're doing the same thing. So y equals -1x, that's the m, plus the b, well the b is a negative, so we're just going to put -4. Now if you want to clean this one up a little bit, you can. You could just put y equals -x minus 4, that's the same thing. Either one's fine. Alright, number 6, the y-intercept. Remember, y-intercept is another name for the b, and then the slope is the m. So I'm giving them to you in a different order just to make sure you're actually looking at what you're writing down and reading the problem. So y equals the m, -2, then x stays x, plus b, well b is 7 in this case. Alright, you'll be in charge of number 7, and then we can do 8. 8 says a vertical line that goes through the x-axis at 33. So if it goes through the x-axis, it's an x equals line. 33. X equals 33. Just tell me where it goes through the x-axis. Remember, horizontal lines and vertical lines, that we call those special lines. It's either an x equals or a y equals. Alright, so 9 and 10, you'll be in charge of 9. We can do 10 together. We're still working in y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. So first, in this problem, I need to find the slope. I need to find the m. Remember, m is our rise over our run. So from this point to this point, it looks like you're going down 1, so my rise would be -1, and you're going right 3. So -1 over 3. And then b is just where it touches the y-axis, so it's touching the y-axis at -2. Now you're ready to write the equation. I'll write it down below the graph. So the equation for this line is y equals -1/3 x minus 2. Y equals mx plus b. M is your slope, your rise over your run. B is your y-intercept, where it touches the y-axis. Alright, so now we're doing word problems. It's everything we're doing today, you probably will notice, is coming back to this y equals mx plus b. Now, we always call m the slope, b the y-intercept. It's slightly different when you're working with word problems as opposed to a graph. Here I like you to think of m as your change or your rate of change. And then b is where you start, or your starting number. So on number 12 it says, I rent a car for $150 plus an additional $25 for each day that I drive it. So how much is it costing to rent this car right at the beginning? $150. That's like the the starting price. If you just drove it off the lot and took it right back, you'd owe them $150. Each day you drive the car, the amount's changing. How much is it changing by each day? $25. So this will be my M. So my equation here is going to be y equals 25x plus 150. This is the part you're getting graded for. Now, it's helpful to know what x and y represent. X represents the number of days you're going to drive the car. Separate that a little bit. And y represents the number of total dollars you owe at the end. So I'll just put number of dollars.
You said we don't gotta write that, right?
I am not grading you on this part. I always write it. It just helps me figure out what I'm talking about in part B. But the part that I'm actually grading you on is here. All right, and then part B, how much will I owe if I keep the car for 5 days? So is days the X or the Y? The X. So I am going to figure out the Y when X equals 5. So I'm going to take the X out and put a 5 in. Then I will solve for Y. Well, y is already by itself. That's great. All you have to do is the math here. What's 25 times 5? How much is 5 quarters? Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's 125 plus 150. So this will end up costing $275. Any questions? I cannot stress enough how important it is to know y equals mx plus b. And to remember that m is the changing number, how much is going up or down each time period or each snack you eat or each hour that goes by. And b is always where you start. Questions? All right. Anyone need more time with 12 or else we'll jump down to 14? Did you say a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, number 14 says, I have $40 to spend making copies. Each colored copy costs me 50 cents. So how much am I starting with? $40. That will be my B value. Which makes 0.5 or 50 cents my M. Now the problem here, you gotta have to use your reasoning skills a little bit. Are they paying you 50 cents every time you make a copy? You're paying them, right? So your total's actually going down. So we're gonna think of this as a negative M value. And again, that's because your change, the change of your overall money is going down, so the slope has to be a negative number. So the equation here is going to be y equals negative. You can put the 0 to remind yourself that it was 50 cents. You can drop the 0. I'm going to drop it because it feels weird to write it, honestly. So negative 0.5 plus 40. That is my equation. Oops, I'm missing something. What am I missing? The x. Oh my goodness. Terrible mistake. So y equals negative 0.5x plus 40, where x is what's causing the cost to go down? Or your dollar amount to go down? Every time you make a copy. So x is going to be the number of copies. And y is going to be your total number of dollars. How many copies can I make before I run out of money? So if you run out of money, how much money do you have? $0. So I'm going to take the Y out, and instead I'm going to put a 0 in because look, Y represents the number of dollars that I have. So take the Y out, put a 0 in. Still equals negative 0.5x plus 40. Now, previously the Y was already isolated. You could just do the math when you were solving this equation. Here the variable though, like right smack dab in the middle. So we need to get everything else away from the X. The way we do that is to undo addition and subtraction first. So I'm going to subtract 40 from both sides of the equal sign. 0 minus 40 is negative 40. And that equals negative 0.5x. All right, then I want to undo the addition or the multiplication or division. So I'm going to divide both sides by that negative 0.5. Those go away. The x is by itself. It equals, what is negative 40 divided by negative 0.5? Well, a negative divided by a negative is going to be a positive. What's 40 divided by a half? Or 0.5? Anybody have a calculator?
80.
It is 80, yes. 80, what are we talking about? Copies. Equals X or X equals 80 copies, either way. So on this next page, we are writing the equation for the line parallel to the line given. Parallel lines have what? The same slope or m value. All right, so I want a line parallel to y equals 3 over 2x plus 5. The only thing I want from this line is the slope. So my m is going to equal 3 over 2, and then I'm going to use this b down here. So my equation will be y equals 3 over 2x plus 7. You do not use the b from the original equation. The only thing we want is the m, and the m stays the same. Parallel lines have the same m. What are your questions? All right, same thing on number 18. You can't really see the m. We know it's a 1. So the m is going to equal 1, and then the b is given below. The new b is negative 3. So my equation will be y equals 1x minus 3. All right, jump over to 20. Again, all you want to do is take the m out. Parallel lines have the same m, same slope, and we want to use the new b. So y equals negative 2x minus 8. What questions do you have? All right, so number 22, there's actually a typo here. It says write the equation for and graph the line. You don't have to graph the line on these. I didn't give you a graph. So cross off anything that talks about the graph. We're just writing the equation for the line perpendicular. How do you find perpendicular lines, or what's important about perpendicular lines? What do we do with the slope? You guys remember?
Flipping.
We flip the slope. And what? We change the sign. Remember, if it was positive, it needs to be negative. If it was negative, it needs to be positive. So we flip the slope and we change the sign. This is where we were writing things like old M and new M. Do you guys remember this section? So what's the old M? -1/2. What's the new M? +2/1. You have to flip it. So this is the M that's going to go into my new equation. This is the B that's going to go into my new equation. So y equals 2/1, or you could just change it to the whole number 2 if you wanted. Then the x plus 4. All right, jump down to number 24. Same idea. We need the old M and the new M. What's the old M? -1. Good. Make it a fraction. I'm going to put it over 1. Anytime you have a whole number, you need it to be a fraction. You just put a 1 on the bottom. All right, so now flip it. That'd just be 1/1. Change the sign. It was negative. Now it's positive. So my M is 1/1. My B is -6. So my new equation is y equals 1/1x -6. Now you can clean that up if you want. You could just make it 1x, or really you could just make it x. Again, I'm not going to be super nitpicky on that sort of stuff. If you can get to here, that's great. This is usually how we think of slope when we graph anyway, so fractions are more than fine with slope. All right, and then over on 26, what's the old M? 3/5. So what's the new M? Yep, -5/3. Goes down here, sorry, kind of ran out of space. And then B is 0. So my equation for this one would be y equals -5/3x plus 0. You don't need to write plus 0. That's one I usually don't write. I feel like it's just a waste of your ink. So remember, parallel lines, the slope stays the exact same. Perpendicular lines, you take the slope, you flip it, you change the sign. Anyone need more time on these 3? All right, next even is 28. We'll also do 30 on this section. Here you're just telling me what the x and y intercepts are. Remember, x-intercept is where it touches the x-axis. So here it would be -2. Y-intercept is where it touches the y-axis, so we'd be at +2. Number 30, x-intercept, where it touches the x-axis, is at 4. Y-intercept, where it touches the y-axis, is at 3. That's the last even number on here, correct?
No.
31's where it ends?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So you guys are in charge of the odds. So when you walk in tomorrow, I'm going to quickly come around to everyone, see if you did the odds. If you did the odds, you're going to get completion points. If you didn't do the odds, you will not get the completion points. And it's not something you can make up. So please make sure you do the odds before I see you again tomorrow. Your other job for tomorrow is going to be to take your notebook quiz. So make sure you have your notes in order, 4.1 through 4.5. We will very quickly talk about the review, like maybe 7 minutes talking about the review, so a whole lot faster than the hour it took us today. Then you'll have the rest of class to do your notebook quiz tomorrow, and then Friday's the test. Any questions?